All right, ladies, welcome back to another quick installment of Julian's Random Projects. I had an itch, a slight nostalgic. I don't know if it's nostalgia, if it's like, I don't know, less than 20 years ago. But I wanted to get back into the PSP, the PlayStation Portable, partly because I spent some time hacking on this in the early days, a week after launch day with a community, and did a lot of messing around. And then later, a lot of my value add to the group was hardware mods, like sniffing different data lines and buses. And then also I've shoehorned in an FM transmitter in here, and you could actually change the frequency from the user interface. So that was kind of fun. So at the time, you could be doing your racing game and stuff, and have like effectively stereo audio sitting in your living room, that kind of a thing. So you didn't have to just have headphones on the whole time. It was kind of fun, slightly gimmicky, but still a lot of fun to do. And God bless YouTube, because YouTube suggested that the best PSP experience right now is actually a PS Vita. I skipped past the Vita. I was kind of on to Nintendo stuff, although I wasn't really big into their handhelds, but it gainfully employed, let's say that. I was just very, very busy at work, and I knew that if I'd bought a handheld system, I wasn't going to have a lot of time to dedicate to playing it, which is still the case, but I'm trying to like eke out time here and there. And when I find out that something after the fact, something that's been out for a little while, is nearly fully ownable, meaning you can get in and dump your games to the memory card, or install emulators on the device, although you could always do that with this. This one had a nicer screen, and people were saying that once you put a number of emulators on here, it was an amazing little handheld. And I thought, well, why not? I'll give it a go. And local prices for these things were everything from $50 to like $200+. And I was like, are they coming with a bunch of games, or what's the deal? And people kept mentioning that they had a specific version of the firmware, and that's why theirs was expensive. And that specific version being 3.6 right now, hopefully higher versions soon, I found out, enabled a lot of this home brewing and backing up of games, which is ideal when you've got kids and they can lose little postage stamp size stuff, or smaller, really. So being able to dump your games to local storage is ideal. Why make a video? Who cares? Well, two things I thought were interesting about my journey in the Vita, and I'll try to keep this to less than 10 minutes. I thought it would be fun to try and buy one of these for less than the $200 some odd that a low firmware version would cost, and so I started to troll Craigslist. The Vita was so low in its production numbers that they're like hen's teeth. These things are in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. There were like 3 in my area, unless I wanted to drive up to Petaluma. There's like 2 or 3 of these things on Craigslist. That's unheard of. If something's popular, search for the Wii, or a Nintendo product of some kind, or even hell, a Sony, like a PlayStation 3 or 4. There are dozens and dozens and dozens of those things. So Craigslist in this area is popping, and so if there's something to be had, it's on there. I expanded my search, and I started to find other little apps and things, Let Go and OfferUp and some others, and there was a lot more on there for some reason. Maybe it's the device, or some people try to get like top dollar, or maybe it's like newfangled, and maybe this is how I find out that Craigslist is useless. I don't know. So I started to buy some, and then you bug people and say, hey, can you check the firmware version? And they're like, yeah, fuck off. Like, I don't have time for this thing. The thing's $50. Do you want it or not? And so I was like, you know what? For $50, it's a very small part of my world. Let me take a gamble on it. And I bought one. I think it was this guy. Actually, you want to boot up? Yeah. Let's see. Oh yeah, the Lego game. And booted up. Of course, it came. Some of these, as I bought some of these things, some of them came with games, some did, some didn't. That kind of thing. So, let's see, settings. All right. So I realized that I've noticed a number of folks that are blurring out their MAC addresses. I don't know if that's to keep Sony from making note of their MAC address, or if there's like MAC address cloning going on in the community. I don't know, but better safe than sorry. So this one ended up being 3.68. So not ideal. We want 3.6. So I set that one aside. The next person ended up being one of these newfangled slim models. Sorry, the PCH 2001. So also 3.68 on that one. But nice that, I mean, it's a beautiful, well cared for example is one of these slim ones. So if firmware modifications or custom firmwares become available for this guy soon, this will end up being one of my go-tos. It's a lot lighter. I like it. I haven't played these enough to know whether the OLED, this has a regular LCD screen, and the older version had an OLED screen. The blacks are a lot blacker on this one, but I don't know that I care, or whether what my preference will be right now. Just the shape of this thing, the shape of the newer one, the slim one, feels a lot nicer. I dig it. And it's got mini USB because Europe. I think that would be a lot more conducive to my style of kind of running and gunning. And then again, for $50, I mean, what a steal for this thing. Once you throw a couple emulators on it and it works, even if I just use it right now for like Minecraft or something for the kid, it'd be pretty decent. So I will not treat it nicely. I'll probably make one of these kind of like my daily, and then start to go through and play a bunch of fun games, and also just toss it in my bag and could care less. This one actually came with some cool gee-whizzy hand grips, and I think is the culprit for why this was so cheap. It did not turn on. That's the other thing. So the two things I'm trying to get at here in this video. One is that I started to look for units that didn't boot or that were without charger, and then I bought a number of chargers on Amazon, this little charging cable. These were like $2 a piece, so I got a handful of those. And then as I knew that I was going to have some that, as I boot them, they weren't the one I wanted, and then I would be able to resell them later or give them away, and I would need charging cables. Charging cable out of necessity, and then later to ship them out. But I think this is the reason this one got tossed in a drawer and never played and sold to me as not working, because the female USB connection here is damaged, and so it jiggles, and then this thing comes on every once in a while. And so this thing passed the charge through to the Vita, and once it broke, it acted like it wasn't charging anymore, and the person was just didn't troubleshoot it or try to take it out of here. So it didn't boot. My benefit, totally fine. So then, in searching, I started to get an idea of like what it looked like, and a guy had one on there, and it looked different. Here's the second reason I am making this video. I stumbled across a development unit. This is made for the folks that don't know what a dev kit is or development unit is. This is manufactured for Sony employees or for a game developer, so that they can test the game on specific hardware that has debug ability, and in this case has the ability to do HDMI out, which the original one does not. So some side-by-side comparisons, really similar, except for this one's got HDMI out. And of course they make a Vita TV, which is like a little a box that you can Velcro to the back of your large screen HDMI display and play some Vita games on there. And my guess is that it was literally the same circuit board, and this guy is just no stuffed on that thing. And so I bet if you dug into the original or this 1000 model, you would probably find all of the signaling you would need to pull HDMI out of here. Is it economically worth it? No. Go buy yourself one of these like $50 PSVitas and move on with your life. But if you have to demo to the execs on your gaming company, or you want to debug without having to hunch over this tiny little screen, the HDMI out is ideal. It also has USB, and the USB is required to, I think I had to have it in there to get this thing to boot up, if memory serves. I'm not going to boot it up here because it's a big pain in the dick to pull a bunch of cables and things. But I will insert some stills, maybe in some video. I'm not sure if I have video of this thing booting up. But back to the deltas here. So instead of translucent plastic, they are opaque black. It's missing some of the branding on the top as PSVita. Has the same ports, presumably for matching the production model as close as possible. Place for games. Both have ports for the memory cards, the proprietary expensive memory cards, which is why I bought a handful of these. So someone designed these, and then China cranked them out by the millions. And well, maybe not millions if there's not that many Vita owners, but you get the idea. Lots of them, and these same thing. These are $2, so I bought like 10 of them. And then as I run across Vitas, if they can be modified and upgraded, I will toss one of those in there. Oh, sorry, I didn't actually say this thing is a game card form factor. See, it matches that form factor similarly. So you toss that in there, and then you would put a micro SD card in here. So micro SD, cheapest chips. You could toss 128 gig stick in here, and then save all your games and your ROMs and stuff for days. The other reason I'm not showing this thing booting up is I think that one of the things that might exist here, and the reason I've covered up some of the serial numbers here, there might be an encoding. At least if I was going to have this thing out in the wild, I would have this thing binary blast out its serial number here before I started showing battery life indications. Just me. So I will make an effort to return this to its rightful owner at some point soon. But in the meantime, let us take a gander and look at it. It's very clean, not used a whole lot. I've already blasted out a request to one of the guys on Reddit. I'm trying to find the development software that exists. It's a Windows app to plug into this, and you can actually see like button presses, and you can see what's running, and you can like break in and interrupt your game on like one of the CPU hack cycles, and just like pause it, read registers in memory, and altogether debug your game. So I'm interested in playing with those features if I can. So if you've got that, send me a direct message, or mention it in the comments, and then send me a direct message so I know to go look for it. Yeah. And fresh in the mail, another unit. They did a very good job. Packaging. I mean, you can't ask for much more than that. Yes, a good sized scratch on this one as advertised. That's fine. Oh. If this is a lower firmware count, I can swap the motherboard over to another unit, so no worries there. All right, yeah, buddy, there we go. All right. Again, some cargo culty shit going on here. Apologies, but no luck. 3.67. What are you gonna do? Except to persevere and demonstrate that eventually, this one was kind of a snail mail in it, but eventually I found a guy local that had one, and it was like really low. It was like 3.5 something, and I was able to upgrade it to 3.6 and apply all of the fun cool guy hacks. So now got a number of games saved on here. I've got RetroArch. Adrenaline is the throwback. That's the reason we started this whole thing. Adrenaline gets you the emulation of an original PSP on this thing. And I don't know how much emulation it is. It seems to be doing really, really well, so it might be running natively. You can get a shell prompt up and running. You can, the videos for these all over the place. The Flow guy is one of the lead developers on this, and promises to have he's been waiting for an end-of-life signal from Sony of some kind. He claims to have an exploit for the later versions of the firmware. If that's the case, he should be launching that soon. And the reason he's waiting, some people are like all upset, and I'm not sure if it was explained properly, but anytime a company wants to play the cat and mouse game back and forth with hackers and homebrewers, anytime you want to play that cat and mouse game, if you push something out, then they can counter it with an update. And if you're playing along at home, don't update your stuff. Nintendo, Sony, whoever. Especially when it's just bug fixes. If your stuff's working fine for you, let it alone. Do not update that shit. And that's a sad state in itself, because you should be updating so that you get all the latest security fixes, but companies like Sony and Nintendo have lost the trust of the consumer, and so a lot of their updates are just to prevent you from doing homebrew in the future. And so if you wait until Sony gives some sort of signal that they're not going to support this, meaning they don't have any other engineering resources to spend on the Vita, if you come out with a hack, it's like hacking the original Nintendo. Like, nobody cares, or at least inside the company, they say, okay, we've abandoned that platform. We're not making stuff for it. We're not trying to sell new models. So if somebody wants to run Linux on it, who cares? Let them. That's what he's waiting for. And when he does, all these other ones, barring the developer unit, all of those other ones will be allowed to run unsigned code or do homebrew stuff. And specifically, the homebrew things that I'm interested in doing are running emulators like RetroArch, and playing old classic games, things that I already own, but I don't feel like blowing the dust off of some cartridges and getting it all hooked up and stuff. So this will be my little machine for the near future. There's a bunch of cool things I'm learning about this thing as a platform. As an example, you can connect your like PS3 and PS4 controllers to it, or one or either or both. Toss this thing up a little kickstand of your making, or 3D print something, or buy whatever. Have some really comfortable gaming on here. That's the kind of stuff I appreciate from Sony. That's really nice. So if you've learned something about the PS Vita, you've enjoyed watching me dink around with them, or if you know more about these development units and care to share, subscribe. Let me know. Thanks for joining. Julian Drender Projects.
I'm hanging in, there ain't no doubt, and I'm hanging tough. Over and out, over and out.